Welcome to Color Commentary, a podcast where the stories shaping our world are told in black and white first, and then we dig into their deeper meaning in full color. Each week, I'll be bringing you the news like this. First, we'll start with what I like to call the black and white section, a clear, straight-shooting rundown of the facts in a tradition of greats like Ed Bradley, Walter Cronkite, and the classic voices of journalism. Then, we'll shift into Color Commentary, where I add my own personal opinions and thoughts. For those watching, when I'm delivering news and strictly facts, it'll be in black and white. And when I'm giving my opinion or color commentary, it'll be in color. Sometimes it'll just be me. Sometimes we'll have guests. But let's figure out together exactly what this show can be with your feedback shaping the journey. Let's get into it. Today, we're talking about something that will reshape black futures for the next generation. New federal student loan rules that just cleared a major hurdle at the U.S. Department of Education. On the surface, these reforms sound reasonable, right? Cap excessive borrowing, simplify repayment, hold predatory colleges accountable. But when you read the fine print, and I mean really read it, you start to see how these rules could fundamentally change who gets to become a doctor, a lawyer, a social worker, or a principal in our communities. This isn't just policy. This is about pipelines. This is about who gets locked out before they even start. Let's break it down. The U.S. Department of Education has cleared a major regulatory hurdle, allowing sweeping changes to the federal student loan system to move forward. The stated goals of these reforms are to simplify repayment, cap excessive borrowing, and increase accountability for colleges while protecting borrowers from unmanageable debt. Here's what's changing. Graduate and professional school borrowing caps, those are the open-ended Grad Plus loan programs. That's being eliminated. In its place, new borrowing limits are being imposed. Most graduate students will be limited to roughly $20,500 per year with a lifetime cap around $100,000. Students pursuing professional degrees, law, medicine, and similar fields will be capped at roughly $50,000 per year with a lifetime cap around $200,000 and an overall limit in the mid $200,000 range. Parent Plus loans and other borrowing options are also being tightened, particularly for future borrowers. Here are some of the changes that's coming to income-driven repayment plans. So existing income-driven repayment plans such as Pay, ICR, Save, Repay, and others are being phased out. To understand what's being eliminated, here's what those plans are. Pay, P-A-Y-E, or Pay as you earn, that caps monthly payments at 10% of discretionary income with loan forgiveness after 20 years of qualifying payments. ICR, income contingent repayment, caps repayments at 20% of discretionary income or what you pay on a fixed 12-year plan, whichever is less, with forgiveness after 25 years. Save, S-A-V-E, or Saving on a Valuable Education, the newest plan, which caps payment at 5% of discretionary income for undergraduate loans and 10% for graduate loans with forgiveness after 10 to 25 years, depending on loan amount. And Repay, that's R-E-P-A-Y-E, revised Pay as you earn. That caps payments at 10% of discretionary income for all borrowers with forgiveness after 20 years for undergraduate loans and 25 years of graduate loans. The system is moving towards fewer repayment options centered on a new plan called the Repayment Assistance Plan, or RAP. Just funny. It's called RAP in this administration. Anyway, this plan will base monthly payments on borrowers' income, but will stretch out both repayment and forgiveness timelines compared to current programs. So, new accountability rules will tighten oversight of colleges and universities. Programs with weak earnings outcomes and high debt-to-earning ratios for graduates may face penalties or lose access to federal financial aid. Critics of these changes argue they would disproportionately harm low-income and Black borrowers. They warn that borrowing caps will limit access to graduate and professional degrees, and that tighter rules will make it harder for students harmed by predatory institutions to get debt relief. That's the news. Now let's talk about it. You're listening to Color Commentary with Dr. Cole. So I have a few different thoughts on this story, and none of them are simple. And I don't want to give you oversimplified because I trust my audience. I trust that you want the actual facts and nuanced conversation it takes. I think that's why you're here. So let me give that to you as somebody who is currently affected by all of this, still in repayment mode, but also would not have had a chance at becoming Dr. Cole without these other resources. All right, so let's start here. On paper, some of these reforms make sense. Predatory colleges should be held accountable. Students shouldn't graduate with $300,000 in debt to become a social worker making $45,000 a year. And to be fair, when I started as a social worker fresh out of school, I wasn't making anywhere near $45,000 a year. And yes, the old Grad Plus system where you could basically borrow infinity dollars as long as the school would accept you, that was fundamentally broken. But here's what's keeping me up at night. When you cap borrowing without changing the price, you're not making education more accessible. You're just deciding who gets to access it at all. Let me break that down. Right now, if you're a family with wealth, these new rules don't touch you. Your parents can still write the check. You can still go to med school, law school, get your doctorate, become a principal, whatever you want. But if you're a first-generation college student, if you're Black or brown, Native, Southeast Asian, I can keep going, working class, or from a community that's just been systematically locked out of wealth building, these caps just became a ceiling on your ambition. Think about what $100,000 in borrowing gets you for grad school. That's tuition, yes, but what about rent, food, books, childcare if you have kids? What if you're the breadwinner? What if you're supporting family members while you're in school? And let's be real. Many Black students, they're not just financing their own education. They're helping parents. They're helping siblings. They're the financial engine for whole networks of people who have been systematically denied access to wealth. So when you cap graduate borrowing at $100,000, you're not just capping loans. You're capping who gets to serve in our communities as credentialed professionals for the next generation. And that leads me to the pipeline. Because that's what this really is. Through my work with Energy Converters, that's the national nonprofit I founded that about 7-8 years ago that trains students to be education researchers and have agency and the ability to change things in their own neighborhoods without waiting, for systems to change. That's what I run. That's what we do. We teach young people to look at data, ask hard questions, and hold systems accountable. One thing our student fellows have discovered time and time again is that the schools serving Black and brown students are chronically under-resourced. And that includes their teachers, counselors, and administrators. Now ask yourself, where do those teachers, counselors, and administrators come from? Well, they come from the community. They go to grad school. They get their credentials. They come back and serve. But what happens when the cost of getting those credentials is capped at a number that only works if you already have family wealth? What happens when the only people who can afford to become those school leaders or psychologists or special education coordinators are people who don't need the salary to survive? It usually means that they don't come from that community. Here's what happens. The pipeline dries up. And 10 years from now, we're going to look around and wonder why there are no Black principals, no Black school counselors, no Black social workers in our neighborhoods. And the answer will be right here in the fine print of these regulations that we didn't read closely enough in 2025. And also, we are already struggling since Brown versus Board, which destroyed the Black teacher. It's just gone. Now we are fighting to rebuild that pipeline and just get more Black teachers in. There's already a deficit. That can be a really serious issue, especially if you work in education and you know how important it is for these young people to have people teaching, guiding, being principals, being counselors that look like them and come from where they come from. This is important. Now let's talk about this new repayment assistance plan, better known as RAP. Let's rap. They're selling it as income-based and flexible. But what they're not telling you is that they're also stretching out the timeline for forgiveness. That means you're going to be in debt longer. You're going to make payments for more years, and you're going to spend more of your life financially tied to decisions you made when you were 22 years old. Here's the thing about income-driven repayment. It only works if your income goes up. But if you're a teacher, a social worker, or a public defender, professions we desperately need more of our people in, your income is not going up fast. You might be making $60,000 at 35 years old, still paying on loans, still unable to buy a home, and still unable to build wealth. And that's by design. This isn't about helping borrowers. It's about managing default rates while keeping people on payment plans for as long as legally possible. So here's my question for you, the people that's listening, the people I trust, the people I'm engaging in an intellectual conversation with, who pushes back on me in loving ways. I do appreciate you all. Here's my question. If we're serious about agency, like real agency, not just the bootstrap kind, right? What do we tell a 17-year-old Black student and their family right now? Because this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where all that talk about empowerment and self-advocacy has to turn into actual tactical guidance. In the work I do, I train students to become education researchers. We operate on 3-phase framework, okay? This is how we build out the act of agency through this framework. I believe in awareness, navigation, and duty. I've written about it a lot. I talk about it a lot. I try not to talk about it too much here, but it's really relevant today. And I like this framework because it gives you 3 distinct levels to help you be a better consumer, a better critic, and a better citizen overall when you're getting new facts. It is the gateway into what has been sorely missed in national dialogue, which is critical thinking skills. So remember those 3 words: awareness, navigation, and duty. It applies to most things. Let me break it down a little more for you. Awareness means understanding the system as it actually is, not as it's sold to you. That means reading the fine print on financial aid offers. That means knowing the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. That means understanding a $200,000 degree is not automatically worth $200,000 just because a college says so. Navigation means making strategic decisions with full knowledge of the consequences. That might mean starting at a community college. That might mean choosing an in-state public school over a private university, which is what I did. That might mean saying no to grad school until you've worked for a few years and saved some money. And duty, the part we don't talk about enough, means that once you have that awareness and you've navigated the system successfully, you have a responsibility to turn around and help the next person. You have a duty to share what you learned. You have a duty to change the system so the next generation doesn't have to navigate the same minefield you did. But here's the uncomfortable truth that I need to say out loud. Individual agency is not enough. You can be the most informed, strategic, financially literate student in the world, and these borrowing caps will still limit what you can do. You can navigate perfectly, and you'll still hit a ceiling that your wealthier peers don't have. That's not a personal failure. That's a system working exactly as it's designed. So yes, we need students to have agency. We need them to understand the rules. We need them to make informed choices. But we also need to be honest about what those choices look like when the game is rigged. Here's what we got to do next. Here's what I'm asking for. And I have specific groups I want to address. For students and families, and again, any race, regardless of how much money you make, regardless of where you live, get informed right now. Don't wait until your senior year of high school. Don't wait until your kid's senior year of high school. Start early, 8th, 9th grade. Understand what college actually costs, what loans actually mean, and what your real earning potential is in the field you want to enter. And then make decisions with your eyes wide open. Have other conversations. I am a big, huge supporter of vocational careers. I think they pay well. They tend to be recession proof. I don't care what's going on in the economy. When toilets clogged, they got to be unclogged. And you know what? It's damn near $200 to $300 just for somebody to show up and look at it. There's nothing wrong with those jobs. Also, and now that I've grown, I'm not a child anymore, right? I majored in political science with a law option. If I could do it over again with how much everything costs, I probably wouldn't have majored in that. Why? I probably would have majored in something that was STEM focused, something that you had to like really get a college basis in and then grow from there in. And I say that because there's a lot of people in politics that did not do poli-sci. You can pick up that skill set in a lot of different places. Not many people are just walking off the street and becoming an engineer, though. Okay? And if you are a very, very, very special talent. And God bless you. Drop a comment if you're one of those people because I want to know you. Okay? Now, for educators and counselors, stop selling college as a universal good. Start asking, is this particular college at this particular price worth it for this particular student? And if the answer is no, say it out loud. Our job is not to get every kid into college. Our job is to help every kid build a future worth living. Our job is to make it possible and to make sure every kid is qualified and has the ability and skill to attend college. But that decision is theirs and their families and theirs and their families alone. We don't run these people's lives. Now, again, I will always be an advocate for college, even though I do think it is not always the best deal in town. But that's because of where I came from. That's because I'm the first one in my family to go to college, and I am now a doctor. I haven't saddled with crazy debt, but I also get to put a different type of good into the world. I have a different type of career that most of my family don't have. And that career helps out a lot of people in my family, especially right now with government assistance being put on hold, spending a lot of money and helping out a lot of people in my family. And those are people that also helped me when I grew up homeless and when I grew up on food stamps and when I needed those things. So I can never, ever turn my back on that. And I can never, ever turn my back on the fact that college was one of the biggest resources brought into my life that changed the trajectory of my life. And I went to a lowly state college. I didn't go to some big school. School didn't even have a football team. But damn it, I've been able to travel the world and travel the country. So I have a love-hate relationship with universities, but I'm never not going to talk about where I came from and the impact that college had for me. Now, for policymakers, stop pretending that borrowing caps without price controls or anything other than a rationing system. If you want to make college affordable, make it affordable. Cap tuition, fund public universities, expand Pell Grants. Stop putting all the risk on 18-year-olds and their families. See, I'm not a person that, I know I talk about race and I talk about it in a few different ways. I'm not afraid to talk about race. These conversations have to happen. As much as we like to act like we are not a colorblind society. Okay? And what this feels like, and that's why this part is in color, because this is my thoughts, not the facts. This is my assessment. It feels like we do want to put people of color back in their place. It feels like we do want to make that pecking order a little bit, clearer. Now, there will be a ton of poor white people that are also punished by this. Just like there will be a lot of black people, a lot of brown people, and a lot of poor people, and a lot of races in between that will be impacted by this. So stop acting as if we're doing this huge public good. Because if we really wanted to do a public good, we could. The same way we find money to send over to partners or allies or Argentina or whatever other country is having the issues that they have, and we infuse them with cash. And listen, I'm not dense in that realm. I understand the need for when we need to do that stuff. I understand the role that we play on the world stage. And in order to do that with fidelity, you have to take care of home first. But see, America needs a pauper class. It needs a class of people that will work in fast food, especially with all this stuff that they're trying to do with immigration right now. Again, like I said, these are not simple answers. These are complicated things that we have to confront. And now, just for all of us, we got to talk about this. We just need to make sure that every family in America understands that the rules just changed and that the dream of just go to college and it'll work out is no longer true, if it ever was. Because here's the thing. These regulations are not neutral. They will reshape who becomes a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a social worker, a researcher, every credentialed profession you can name. And if we don't pay attention to the fine print now, in 2025, we're going to wake up in 2035 and realize that we just let an entire generation of Black professionals get locked out. Not because they weren't smart enough, not because they didn't work hard enough, but because they couldn't afford the fine print. Again, I would be remiss if I did not talk about where I came from personally. I am not on welfare now. I grew up on welfare. Like, I was one of the kids that would tear the stamps out of the food stamp book because I was ashamed and try to sneak it to the guy at the corner store at the grocery store, and they would have to chide me in front of the other people and say, you don't get to rip this out. We rip it out. Don't do that. And here's the thing. I was embarrassed, but everybody else in there was on food stamps too. I needed that government assistance to become who I am. And I was raised by, I think, who was the greatest woman alive, Ozetta Hooper, my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. And we lived in the Lincoln Court Projects in Paducah, Kentucky. Remember, I moved around a lot. My parents was not where they needed to be in life, so we would go back and forth between the Chicago area and Paducah until she died. And I remember, I said this to her. I said, I love my grandmother, man. I love her more, and I've never loved another person like I love that woman. And because of that, I wanted to be with her all the time. And I remember we were going for a walk one day after church in our community, in our project. It was like a big old square and had like a park in the middle of it. Lincoln Court Projects. They torn down now. But I remember saying to her, I said, Granny, when I get older, I'm going to get an apartment right next door to you. And my grandmother stopped, looked at me, grabbed me by the shoulders, and said, listen, baby, I don't ever want you to live here. I want you to go to school. I want you to go see the world. I want you to go do great things. And if your granny's around later on, you can move me wherever you want. But I don't want you here. And what she was saying, she wasn't ashamed of those projects. She didn't have a disdain for it. We actually had a really great community there. We took care of each other. People in that community looked out for me. And it had its fair share of ghetto shit because it's the projects. Just like original Jewish ghettos and projects, right? Ghetto is, that term wasn't coined by us. That was when Jewish people were coming over here, or when Italians came over, or when there was poor white people in Appalachia, right? Like, struggle ain't just a Black thing. It's not just a brown thing. Go look at who's on welfare. Go look at their skin color. It's every race. People need help in the richest country in the history of the planet. And I do find it somewhat hypocritical that now we care about debt, but our national debt is in the trillions. We raise the debt ceiling every time it comes up. We do that for us. But when citizens, American citizens, regardless of race, need it, now it's a handout. The hypocrisy is blinding. But most of us aren't in a position to discuss it because we don't have all the facts, because we go into these things emotionally. We're not weighing the pros and cons. Listen to me. Your worth is not determined by whether or not you go to college or not. I see college as a very needed tool. I also feel that college is not the same investment. You don't get the same return on investment that you once got from it. I do feel that. I do feel that colleges are becoming less rigorous. I do feel that what used to be the bastions of freedom of speech and free thinking and testing out new ideas and being in debate has shifted. I do think we coddle people far too much in colleges now. I do think that there's a difference between actual violence and rhetorical violence, meaning I just don't like your argument. It's threatening me. No, college is supposed to be where you hear all the other arguments. You see, oh, you might be a Nazi. And you learn and gain the skills to out-argue them, to have the better idea, to show why you have a better idea, to explore new lands, to explore new themes. So the product is a little cold, but there's still value in it. And you can make colleges great again. You really can. And there's different type of colleges. There's different type of universities. There's different type of classes. These things are happening at the same time. I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think the affirmative action cases happening right before is a coincidence. I don't think that some Asians partnering with some white people to say that too many black people are getting into Harvard is a coincidence. All the while they did not touch the enrollment of the legacy enrollments. That's all fine. I got you. But let's keep having this conversation. I want to know what you think. I truly do. I truly, truly do. And if you are somebody who just walked off the street and became an engineer, I was serious. I want to know you and be your friend because you, my friend, are amazing. Thank you for listening to Color Commentary. We love to hear from you. So drop us an email at colorcommentarypod@gmail.com. That's colorcommentarypod@gmail.com. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star rating, share it on social media, and join us every Thursday for more Color Commentary with Dr. Cole. See you next week. Peace.